I had to learn to fend for myself from a very young age, especially when it came to making food and keeping myself entertained. My mom was a single parent, always working long shifts to keep us afloat. That meant I spent a lot of time alone in our small apartment. For lunch, I usually went for the cheapest, easiest option, McDonald's. There was one just around the corner, and all I needed were a few quarters to get a meal. That was all I ever had. As for entertainment, my world revolved around my mom's old desktop computer, the kind with a bulky CRT monitor. It was outdated even back then, but to me it was a gateway. This was before smartphones, before social media had taken over. The internet, in my eyes, was pure magic. At the time, chat rooms were all the rage, no Facebook, no Instagram. Just anonymous spaces where people could talk, usually with nothing more than a name and an age. Most were community-based, meaning I was mostly chatting with people from my own city. That's how I met Jake. He was my age, 9, maybe 10. His username was just Jake, simple as that. We hit it off immediately. He was funny, easy to talk to, and we even played Counter-Strike together when I could convince my mom to let me use the computer a little longer. After a few weeks of talking almost every day, he brought up the idea of meeting in person. "Hey, wanna grab some food sometime?" he asked one evening. I didn't hesitate. I never had much to do, and truth be told, I didn't have many friends at school either. "Yeah, sure," I typed back. "Where do you live?" "Not too far," he replied. I wasn't about to tell him my address. I wasn't that naive. But I asked if he could meet me at the McDonald's near the big intersection by my house. He agreed. 6 o'clock. I remember feeling giddy, nervous even. I had never met anyone from the internet before, and the thought of having a new friend I could actually hang out with in real life was exciting. Before heading out, I raided my mom's coin jar for just enough quarters to buy a Happy Meal. Then, I made my way to the McDonald's. I left 5 minutes early just to be safe and got there right on time. Jake wasn't there. I kept scanning the room, looking for the green jacket he said he'd be wearing. The employees recognized me as they always did. I was a regular. I decided to hold off on ordering, figuring I'd wait for Jake. 5 minutes passed, then 10. My stomach rumbled, but I ignored it. That's when I saw him. Not Jake. A man. He was standing outside by the window staring at me. His raincoat was damp from the evening drizzle, and his eyes, there was something off about them. The second I made eye contact, he started moving, slow, deliberate steps, until he was inside, standing right next to my table. I felt my body tense. The man was holding a Happy Meal box just above the table's edge. He smiled, a little too wide. "You look hungry, kid. Want some of my Happy Meal?" My throat went dry. No, I'm fine, thanks. I'm just waiting for someone," I managed to say. "Oh, you waiting for Jake?" His voice was casual, almost too casual. "He's my son." A chill crept up my spine. Before I could react, the man slid into the seat right next to me. Not across from me, right next to me. The bench creaked under his weight. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to move. He placed the Happy Meal on his lap instead of on the table. Then, leaning in close, so close I could feel his breath against my ear, he whispered, "He called me. Said he was riding his bike over to meet you. I know this isn't the safest part of town, so I thought I'd drive over, just to make sure everything's okay." I swallowed hard. Jake should have been here by now. "I hope he's okay," I mumbled, suddenly feeling uneasy. The man sighed dramatically. "Yeah. While we wait, though, you should eat something." He nudged the Happy Meal toward me. "I bought this for both of you." I didn't move. I couldn't move. Something about him felt wrong. Now that I think about it, now that I replay this moment over and over in my head, I realize I should have run. I should have screamed. I should have done anything but sit there, staring at that damn Happy Meal box. But at the time, I was just a kid. I guess I didn't really have a proper sense of people's intentions back then. On one hand, this man was invading my personal space in a way that made me uncomfortable. But on the other, his story made sense. How else would he have known I was waiting for someone named Jake? That small detail, just knowing the name, was enough for me to give him the benefit of the doubt. And in the end, it wasn't logic that convinced me. It was my stomach. I was hungry. I could have bought my own food, sure, but free food was free food. Okay, sure, I said hesitantly. Thank you, sir. Yes, that's it, the man said, smiling too widely. Just reach in there and grab something at random. Be fair to Jake, though. He held the Happy Meal box tightly in his lap instead of putting it on the table. That was odd, but I didn't think much of it. I just wanted something to eat. When I reached inside, my fingers brushed against something. Wrong. It wasn't fries, it wasn't a burger, it wasn't even a cheap McDonald's toy. It was something soft, almost sticky, and it wouldn't come out of the box. My stomach turned as I tugged, trying to pull whatever it was free. That's when a voice interrupted. It's all right here. The sudden sound made both of us jump. A McDonald's employee, probably in her early 20s, stood a few feet away, hands on her hips, watching us closely. I pulled my hand from the box instinctively. The man clamped the lid shut almost instantly, like he was trying to hide something. Yes, we're all fine here, the man said quickly. His voice had a nervous edge now. Just enjoying some quality time with my son. Son? I opened my mouth to correct him, but something in me, some deep, instinctual part of my brain, told me to stay quiet. You see, he continued, my other son is right outside that window. Do you see him there? I turned, my head trying to follow where he was pointing. I didn't see anyone, and the employee didn't even bother looking. Her expression didn't change. Get out, she said, her voice firm. I'm calling the police. The man's entire demeanor shifted. His jaw clenched, his hands trembled slightly, and then, without a word, he bolted. He shoved the Happy Meal box aside and sprinted out the door like a man fleeing from something terrible. The employee caught my wrist before I could follow. Sit down, she said. I need your mom's number. I hesitated, but something about the way she looked at me, serious, concerned, made me comply. She dialed my mom, explaining that I was safe but that she needed to come get me. The way she spoke made me feel like I was in trouble, though I didn't understand why. I didn't argue. I just sat there, staring at the Happy Meal box the man had left behind. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, irrationally hoping that maybe there was still food inside, but when I lifted the lid, my breath caught in my throat. It was empty. More than empty. There was a hole cut in the bottom. A small, precise hole, about 2 inches wide. I had no idea why someone would do that. Not back then. A couple of hours later, my mom arrived, visibly stressed. She gave me a long talk, again about not talking to strangers. I nodded through the entire thing, not telling her about Jake, not telling her that I had been the one to set this meeting up. I just wanted to go back to my room, boot up my computer, and lose myself in video games. And so we never really talked about it again. I never logged back into that chat room, never tried to contact Jake. And Jake never contacted me either. Months later, I finally understood what had happened. It was a normal evening. My mom and I were watching one of those TV shows where they caught predators in the act. And then I saw him, the man in the raincoat. My entire body locked up as the host explained his crimes. He wasn't just some random guy, he was a predator. One who pretended to be a boy named Jake to lure children into meeting him. He'd been caught at another McDonald's in the city doing the exact same thing. I stared at the screen, frozen, as everything clicked into place. Jake never existed. I had been talking to that man the entire time. And then I remembered the box, remembered reaching inside. I remembered how whatever I touched had been warm, sticky. My stomach twisted, and I barely made it to the bathroom before I threw up. I never told my mom. I felt ashamed, embarrassed. But from that day on, I was never the same kid again. To put it in context, all of this happened during the chaos of the COVID-19 lockdown in March 2020. I had been sent home from university, and as if the disaster of the pandemic wasn't enough, I had to adapt to Zoom classes while juggling shifts at McDonald's. I had worked there before, so when things shut down, I figured it was easy money. But during those lockdown days, the McDonald's where I worked was slammed. I won't say which one, but it was one of the only places still open. The rest of the businesses in the plaza had their shutters down, their lights off, ghosts of what they used to be. But us? We were like a beacon in the middle of all that chaos. And that meant our clientele was different. A mix of regulars, drifters, and people who frankly gave me the creeps. I don't know if it happened in your city or if you noticed, but during that period, people started acting strange. I mean, really strange. Maybe it was the isolation. Maybe it was fear. Whatever it was, those days turned into a real spectacle. It was like something primal had come undone in people. The kind of people you'd normally see at odd hours started showing up in broad daylight, blending in with the desperate, the angry, and the ones just looking for something, anything, to keep themselves sane. And then there was him, one of our regulars, a guy who I swear had something deeply wrong with him. Not just off, but wrong. He wasn't homeless, didn't look particularly dangerous, but there was something about him that set my teeth on edge. He'd come by multiple times, a week, and every single time, he was an enigma. Whenever he arrived, he'd stand outside the window with this unreadable expression. His gaze was so intense it felt like he was studying us, as if we were exhibits in a museum. He wouldn't say a word, wouldn't wave, wouldn't do anything but watch. People in the restaurant would shift uncomfortably whenever they caught sight of him. Some pretended not to notice, others whispered. But he didn't care. He just waited, and when he did order, it was always the same. The same ritual, the same demands. He wouldn't let just anyone take his order. No, he had his chosen few. If someone he didn't want approached him, he'd just stare at them, unblinking, until someone else came along. And when he finally did speak, it was always the same thing. Freeze, burger, spoon, not tongs, a spoon. He was obsessed with the idea that a spoon gave him more fries, and nothing could convince him otherwise. If we tried using tongs, he'd shake his head slowly like a disappointed teacher. If we got it right, he'd nod once, take his food, and leave. Most of us just learned to play along. Easier that way. But I hated it. Hated how he made us feel like we had to cater to his weird little rules. Hated how he made the air in the store feel heavier whenever he was around. And then came that night. It was late, 10:30 p.m., almost closing. I was finishing up at the front, wiping down counters, already dreaming about taking off my apron and crashing into bed. The restaurant was dead. Most nights, by that time, it was just drive-through stragglers. And then he showed up. I saw his bike, first. It glided to a stop just outside the window, and then there he was, standing there like always, peering in. I sighed. I knew how this would go. I took his order without even thinking. Fries, burger, spoon. I handed it off to Lee, my coworker, who shot me a look but didn't argue. We'd both done this 100 times. As Lee scooped the fries with a spoon, he muttered, "I swear to God, one day I'm just gonna..." He cut himself off, shaking his head. He dropped the fries into the bag and stepped away, rubbing his temples. I need a break. That left just me and my night manager, Vanessa. She was new, had no clue about this guy's whole thing. So when she handed him the bag, his face barely moved. He took a slow step forward and looked inside. Then, without raising his head, he said, "Not enough." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "You got what you ordered." He blinked. "More." I felt my stomach knot up. Vanessa just... But she didn't let me finish. She was exhausted too, and frankly, she wasn't in the mood for this crap. "Listen," she said, her voice sharper now. "You don't get to make up the rules here. You asked for fries, you got fries, that's it." Silence. The kind of silence that drags on just a little too long. Then slowly he looked up. I swear, in that moment something changed. His eyes, usually blank and distant, suddenly focused, really focused. And for the first time I felt like he wasn't just looking at us, he was seeing us. Something about his stare made my skin crawl. He wasn't angry, he wasn't upset. He was just there. Like he was absorbing every detail, filing it away for later. "Don't," he said softly. Vanessa let out a short laugh. "Don't what?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, staring, fingers tightening around the bag. Then, just as quickly as it started, it was over. He turned on his heel, walked outside, and got on his bike. But he didn't leave. He just sat there, in the dark, watching. I don't know how long he stayed. I tried not to look, tried to focus on finishing my shift, but every time I glanced out the window, he was still there, still watching. And I don't know why, but that night something about it felt different. Like a line had been crossed, like we weren't just his routine anymore, like for the first time, we were something else. I never knew if that man actually had a mental problem or if he just enjoyed being a pain in the ass. Either way, he was a goddamn nightmare of a customer. Even after that absurd scene with Vanessa, he still had the audacity to complain, like his entire existence depended on getting exactly what he wanted. He always found a way to manipulate the situation, always managed to get the people he liked to take his order. We all just had to put up with it. That night, Sarah, my coworker, was the unlucky one. She handed him the bag of food, her body, language screaming exhaustion, just hoping he'd finally leave. But he didn't take it. Instead, he just stared at her, then opened the bag, peering inside like he was expecting to find something grotesque lurking at the bottom. His jaw clenched. "No," Sarah sighed. "What now?" "This isn't right," he said, voice eerily calm. "You got exactly what you ordered," she said, crossing her arms. "It's fine." He shook his head, his grip on the bag tightening. Then, without warning, he threw it straight through the window. The food exploded across the floor, fries scattered like broken glass, the burger half unwrapped and face down in a puddle of grease. It was like someone had poured a bucket of ice water down my spine. I couldn't even breathe for a second. Sarah, though, she saw red. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she snapped, storming toward the window. Her voice was loud, sharp, filled with barely contained rage. "Do you have any respect? Do you think we're here just to put up with your crap?" The man leaned in, his face inches from hers, his eyes empty but intent. "Make it again." Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "Not a chance." I swallowed hard, my fingers digging into the counter. I could feel the shift in the air, the way everything felt too still, too wrong. This wasn't just another annoying customer. This was something else. Sarah squared her shoulders. "We're not remaking it, but we'll give you a refund. Take it and leave." That was the breaking point. His face twisted in rage, his chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths. Then suddenly he lunged. Sarah jerked back as his hand shot forward, gripping the edge of the window. His entire body tensed, like he wanted to climb through. My stomach dropped as I scrambled to hit the alert button under the counter. At that exact moment, our manager, Vanessa, arrived, stepping between Sarah and the man. "Sir, you need to back up," she said firmly. He didn't listen. Instead, he reached out and grabbed her arm. Vanessa barely had time to react before he yanked, nearly pulling her halfway through the window. Everything happened so fast. I heard Sarah gasp. I heard myself shout. But thankfully, the plastic dividers we had up because of the pandemic stopped him from pulling her any further. Sarah lost it. "Get the hell out," she screamed, her voice cracking with pure fury. "Get out of here!" The man let go, his breathing ragged, his hands trembling, but it wasn't fear. It was something else. A mix of frustration, obsession, and something uglier I couldn't name. And then, as if some switch flipped in his mind, he just stepped back. But he didn't leave. Instead, he started pacing outside, muttering to himself, running his hands through his hair. Then he started yelling. "They think they can do this to me. They think they can treat me like this. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the damn police." He banged on the windows, demanding our attention, but we refused to engage. We were done. Just a bunch of exhausted workers who weren't about to play his twisted little game. The moments dragged on, tension pressing against my ribs like a vice. Then finally, the real police arrived. They pulled up fast, their cars blocking the entrance to the parking lot, cutting off any escape. Officers stepped out, hands resting near their belts, assessing the situation. One of them approached him cautiously. "Sir, we need you to step away from the building." But the man just laughed. It was an eerie, hollow sound, like he truly didn't understand why they were there, as if he were the victim in all this. And then his expression shifted, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. He wasn't scared. He wasn't remorseful. He was amused. The cops had to physically escort him off the premises. He didn't fight them, but the whole time he kept turning his head to look at us. A slow, measured look. The kind that lingers. The kind that sticks with you. And even though they took him away, that wasn't the last we saw of him. No, he came back. Not inside. Not close enough to cause another scene. But we'd see him, walking past the restaurant, standing at a distance, watching, and every time we made eye contact, he held it, lingering, unblinking, like he wanted to remind us that he was still there, that we hadn't gotten rid of him, that we never really could. Sarah didn't last much longer after that. She quit a few weeks later. I didn't blame her. No one should have to deal with that kind of aggression, being screamed at, threatened, physically attacked. And the racial insults she had endured before, that was the final straw. She was too young for that kind of horror. And honestly, so was I. Most of you have probably ordered fast food at least once in your life. Nowadays, it's common to use delivery apps, but back in the early 2000s, food was still delivered the old-fashioned way, by a person, straight from the restaurant. This story is something that happened to my father and me in early 2005, and even now, it still sends chills down my spine. Before I get into it, let me introduce myself. My name is Yoona Lee. I was born in South Korea, but when I was 17, I moved to the United States with my father after my mother passed away. He found a better job opportunity here, and that's when we relocated. Adjusting to a new country wasn't easy, but one thing I immediately fell in love with was the food. No offense to traditional Korean cuisine, but after eating it for 17 years straight, burgers and fries felt like an indulgence I had been missing out on. In those early days, my father and I made it a weekend tradition to try different types of fast food. We quickly realized that McDonald's was our favorite. It was cheap, convenient, and, at the time, felt like the most delicious thing ever. Even now, whenever I eat a burger, I'm hit with a wave of nostalgia. We lived close to the city center, so on nights when we were too tired or just lazy to go out, we'd order from McDonald's. Back then, delivery drivers had specific areas they covered, meaning we saw the same guy every time. His name was Davey, a short, stocky guy with a warm smile and a thick southern drawl. Every time he delivered our food, he'd greet us with the same phrase, "Howdy, Lees." One particular evening, my father came home looking exhausted. "Hey, Yoona, would you mind ordering our usual from McDonald's?" he asked, rubbing his temples. "I'm too tired to cook tonight." "Sure. Do you want anything extra?" "Nah, just the usual." He headed to his room to freshen up while I grabbed the phone and dialed the number. It rang for longer than usual. Just as I was about to hang up, someone finally picked up. The voice on the other end wasn't familiar. It was deeper, almost monotone with a slight distortion, like the person was speaking through an old speakerphone. Something about it made me pause for a moment, but I shook it off and placed my order. About half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Normally we'd hear a knock and then Davy's signature, "Howdy, Lees." But this time there was nothing. Just silence. I felt a strange unease settle in my stomach. Before I could get up, my father stepped out of his room. "Yoona, darling, let me get it," he said. It could be anyone. He opened the door and standing there was a young man, not Davy. He was dressed in a McDonald's uniform, holding a takeout bag. "Your order, sir. That'll be 16 on 49s. He looked about my age, maybe 18 at most. He had dark eyes, neatly combed hair, and a face that could be considered attractive. If my father hadn't been there, I might have even flirted with him. "Thanks, kid," my father said, handing over the cash. We sat down and started eating, but the whole thing felt off. "That was weird," my father muttered between bites of his burger. "Davy always delivers our food." "Maybe he quit," I suggested. "Or maybe this guy was just covering for him tonight." My father hummed in agreement, but the unease didn't leave his face. Then, about 15 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. This time it was followed by a knock and a familiar voice, one that made my blood run cold. "Howdy, Lees." My father and I froze. Slowly, we turned to look at each other. "That's Davy," my father whispered. He got up, walked to the door, and hesitated for just a second before opening it. There he was, Davy. Short, smiling, and standing in his usual McDonald's uniform, holding a takeout bag. He looked confused. "I was wondering when I'd see y'all again." My father frowned. "Davy, we already got our food." Davy blinked. "Huh? But I just got here." A strange chill crept down my spine. "No, we got our order about 15 minutes ago." Davy let out a tired sigh, running a hand through his hair. "That can't be right. I know I was running late, but we're short-staffed tonight." "No, one else should have delivered to y'all." I felt my stomach drop. Maybe the girl who took my order made a mistake and sent 2 people? "Catherine?" Davy scratched his chin. "Yeah, she's a little scatterbrained. Could have been her mess-up." He shrugged and held up the bag. "No worries. I'll just take this back. Y'all have a good night." My father and I watched as he walked away, but neither of us said a word. We were both thinking the same thing. Who the hell was the first guy? We decided we'd talk to the manager another time. That night, despite the eerie mix-up, my thoughts drifted to the cute delivery guy. I wondered how I might see him again, preferably without my father's watchful eye. Back in 2005, social media wasn't as widespread and I wasn't on any platforms, so cyberstalking my mystery McDonald's employee wasn't an option. But the restaurant was only a few blocks away and I knew most of the employees. If I asked around, surely someone could tell me more about him, right? With a concrete plan and a warm, fluttery feeling in my chest, I fell asleep easily that night. The next afternoon after school, I went straight to McDonald's. My first stop was Catherine, the cashier who had taken my order the night before. "Hey, Catherine, you accidentally sent 2 drivers to my house last night." She frowned. "No, I didn't." "Yeah, you did. I got my food from one guy, then Davy showed up later with the same order." She folded her arms. "That's weird, but I don't make those kinds of mistakes." I sighed. There was no convincing her. Moving on, I approached the counter and struck up a conversation with one of the senior employees, an older woman with kind eyes. To my delight, she turned out to be the manager's wife, and a hopeless romantic. When I told her I was looking for a particular delivery guy, she lit up. "Oh, honey, we take group employee photos every year. If he worked here recently, he should be in last year's picture." She pulled out her old flip phone and began scrolling through her gallery. It was a painfully slow process, pressing tiny buttons over and over to cycle through images. I sipped my chocolate milkshake, waiting. Finally, just as I reached the bottom of my drink, she smiled and turned the screen toward me. "Here it is, just point him out and I'll get you his number." My heart skipped. There he was, the same shy smile, the same face I had seen standing at my doorstep the night before. "That's him," I said, grinning. The woman's expression shifted. She glanced at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Her face paled slightly. "Are you sure, dear?" Her voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. I frowned. "Yeah, I'm positive. That's the guy who delivered my order last night. Why?" She hesitated before exhaling a slow breath. "You might want to sit down for this." My stomach tightened. "Why? What happened?" She lowered the phone and spoke in a measured tone. "Sweetheart, I don't know how to say this gently, but Edgar Gant passed away last year. Shortly after that photo was taken, he was in a car accident while delivering an order. A drunk truck driver hit him, killed him instantly." The words hit me like ice water. I stared at her, waiting for some kind of punchline. A smirk. A just kidding. But she just stood there looking at me with the kind of expression people wear when they're delivering bad news to a child. "That's not possible," I said finally. "I saw him yesterday. You can ask my dad. He saw him too." Catherine, who had been eavesdropping, chimed in. "I don't know what you think you saw, but Edgar's been 6 feet under for over a year." I couldn't breathe. I stumbled out of the restaurant, my head spinning. My feet carried me home, and as soon as I got there, I locked myself in my room, shaking. We had eaten the food that Edgar delivered. It had been warm, fresh, real. How could he be dead? Desperate for answers, I turned on my computer and searched his name. Within minutes, I found a news article. There it was, his face. The same face I had just seen in the McDonald's group photo. The article detailed the accident, how he had been on a late-night delivery run, how a semi-truck swerved into his lane, how he never stood a chance. I felt sick. I stood up abruptly and left the house, needing air. The cold evening breeze did nothing to clear my head. My thoughts raced in circles. If Edgar was a ghost, why had we both seen him? Why had my father spoken to him? And more importantly, if he was a spirit, how had we eaten the food he delivered? Chill crawled up my spine. Maybe, just maybe, that delivery was unfinished business. Maybe that order was his last wish. And maybe, after that night, he was finally at peace, because we never saw Edgar again. But we still ordered from McDonald's. In my final semester of college, I had a simple plan. Work a part-time job at McDonald's to save up money and then start my career after graduation. I knew life wouldn't be easy, but I believed in my hard work and planning. The drive-thru became a part of my daily routine. Every day the same orders, the same people, and a monotonous cycle. Some customers were polite, others rude, but nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. I thought this would be a temporary phase, a little adjustment, and everything would fall into place. But that day changed everything. It was a hot summer afternoon when I first saw her. The car came through the drive-thru, and at first I didn't think anything of it. The driver was an average guy, but the passenger immediately caught my attention. She wore a ketchup red wig that looked like a helmet. The color didn't match her outfit at all, and the way she looked at me was unsettling. Her order was simple: a Big Mac and a Sprite for her boyfriend and a 10-piece McNuggets with high C for herself. I checked the drinks and food, then handed it over. But instead of the boyfriend grabbing the bag, the woman reached over and snatched it out of my hands. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with a strange, aggressive energy. I said, "Have a nice day," and handed the food out the window, hoping it was over. But it wasn't. Barely a minute later, I saw her again. She had come inside the restaurant. I was grabbing a McFlurry cup from the front when I saw her standing in the middle of the restaurant, hands on her hips, waiting to speak to the manager. Jim, the manager, was usually calm, but today he wasn't having any of it. When he approached her, she immediately started yelling, "You can't even get my order right. You're all idiots." Jim tried to stay calm, saying, "Ma'am, we can replace your food if it's wrong. Please show me the receipt." But her patience had already run out. "Receipt? You think I'm lying? I ordered a 10-piece, not a 9-piece, idiot." Jim, trying to keep control, told her, "If you're going to talk like that, we'll have to ask you to leave." And that's when everything exploded. She snapped. The woman started throwing everything she could get her hands on: wet floor signs, plastic straws, order numbers, anything within reach. She even ripped the plexiglass barrier from the counter and threw it, barely missing one of my coworkers. "Show me the girl who gave me my food. I'm going to rip her apart," she screamed. I felt my heart race. I didn't know what to do. She was out of control, and I feared she might come after me next. Staff members rushed to try and calm her down, but she was unstoppable. The items she threw hit the walls in the kitchen area, making a huge mess. One of the signs even broke. She pulled a large promotional sign off the wall and threw it over the counter, screaming at everyone. Finally, after several attempts to remove her, Jim told her, "The cops are on their way. You really want to throw your life away over some chicken nuggets?" That's when she disappeared, storming out of the restaurant. The police came and we filed reports, but nothing really came of it. We all assumed she'd face charges or at least be fined. But weeks passed and nothing happened. I tried to forget about it, but every time I worked, I had this lingering fear. What if she came back? A few months later, I was working the drive-thru again. The familiar car pulled up and my heart sank as I recognized it. She was back. This time she didn't yell or cause a scene. Her boyfriend ordered the same meal: Big Mac, Sprite, McNuggets, and High C. I handed the food out the window. When I looked up, she was staring at me, grinning in a way that made my skin crawl. It was like she was daring me to remember her. I didn't think much of it. Maybe she had finally let it go. But as the hours went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My shift ended, and I quickly walked to my car. My keychain was in my hand, the small pink bottle of pepper spray within my grip. I didn't know why I was carrying it, but something inside me told me I should. Just as I reached my car and unlocked the door, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. It was her. She was too close. I could feel the anger radiating from her. I didn't hesitate. I sprayed the pepper spray directly into her face. She screamed and staggered back, rubbing her eyes, but her rage didn't subside. She grabbed a rock and threw it at my car window, shattering the glass. Then, before I could even react, she reached through the broken window and pulled me out of the car. I hit the pavement hard. She grabbed my hair, yanked me across the shards of glass, and started clawing at my face. "This will teach you not to mess with me, you little punk," she shouted as she scratched and punched me, her nails cutting into my skin. I couldn't fight back. All I could do was clutch my car keys, hoping she wouldn't take my car. Finally, Jim came running outside with other staff members. Together, they managed to get her off me. She ran off, disappearing once again. The police arrived soon after, took statements, and collected evidence, but the woman was never found. No charges were pressed, and it seemed like nothing had changed. The terror that woman had caused in my life still lingered. I couldn't go back to McDonald's. I couldn't look in the mirror without seeing the scars on my face. I quit my job and moved back into my parents' house. I even missed my college graduation because I couldn't bring myself to go outside. Sometimes the darkest nights lead to the strongest dawn. This story serves as a warning, but also as a reminder that we can face our worst fears and still come out stronger. John had never really believed in urban legends. He thought they were stories designed to spook the uninitiated, things people whispered about around campfires to make their nights more exciting. But that all changed the night he moved into his new apartment and started his first semester at the local university. His roommate, Brad, was a loud, rebellious rock musician who practiced his guitar until the early hours of the morning, blasting his music without a care in the world. John, a quiet student from out of town, found it difficult to focus on his studies in such an environment. So he began spending his nights at a 24-hour McDonald's that was just a short walk from their student housing. McDonald's had always been a safe, familiar spot for John. The lights were always on, the fryers hummed, and students sat in their little corner booths, headphones in, tapping away at their laptops or flipping through textbooks. It wasn't exactly peaceful, but it was better than his apartment. There was a strange pattern at this McDonald's, though. It was mostly quiet, but every night around 2:50 a.m., something unsettling happened. The staff would always ask, "Would you like fries with that?" Like it was a ritual. No matter what was ordered, it never seemed to make sense. John had chalked it up to the late-night staff just doing their job, repeating the same line without thinking. One night, just as the clock ticked closer to 3 a.m., he saw a familiar face, a regular. She was a female student who always sat in the same corner, buried in her books. Tonight, however, she was different. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic. John glanced up, but before he could say anything, she stopped at his table. She looked over her shoulder nervously and whispered, "You need to get fries. It's almost time." "What?" John asked, confused. "Fries. Get them now," she said, her voice strained with fear. "Trust me. Don't wait." The urgency in her voice caught John off guard. He had heard strange rumors about the McDonald's, but they were always just that, rumors. Still, something about the way she looked at him made his stomach twist. "What are you talking about?" John asked, genuinely concerned. The woman didn't respond. She turned and hurried to the counter, muttering under her breath. Feeling both curious and unsettled, John stood and followed her lead, ordering a large fry before sitting back down. It wasn't long before she slid back into her seat, her fries clutched tightly in her hands, her eyes darting around the room. John sat there, unsure of what to do next. Finally, he leaned over to her. "Okay, I've got the fries. Now what?" he asked, trying to sound casual but failing. The woman looked up at him, her face grim. "It's going to happen soon. You have to have fries on hand or else you'll end up like me." "Like you?" John asked, a chill running down his spine. She nodded slowly. "I wasn't always like this. I didn't believe either. But now..." She trailed off, her gaze drifting to the entrance. "It's him," she whispered. John turned, following her gaze, but all he saw was a couple of late-night customers waiting for their food. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed from the entrance. The door swung open and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. John's blood ran cold. Standing in the doorway was a figure, tall, pale, with bright red hair and a grotesque painted smile stretching unnaturally across his face. It was Ronald McDonald, but not the jolly mascot John had seen on TV. No, this version was twisted, almost demonic. The woman beside him gasped and squeezed her fries tighter. John's heart pounded as Ronald stepped forward, his eyes scanning the room. The cashier behind the counter didn't even seem to notice him. The fryers continued to hum, and the customers continued their quiet chatter. But there was a palpable tension in the air. Without speaking, Ronald made his way to the woman's table first, his eyes never leaving her. As he approached, she froze, too scared to move. "I see you have fries," he said in a low, unsettling voice. "Good choice." The woman nodded, offering him the fries, her hands trembling. Ronald smiled wider, his lips curling as he took the fries and devoured them, his eyes never blinking. John sat there, too stunned to speak. What was happening? Why was no one else reacting? Then the clown turned to John, his gaze piercing. "You," Ronald said, his voice colder than the air around them. "You didn't get fries, did you?" John felt a lump form in his throat. His fries sitting untouched on his tray suddenly seemed like the most important thing in the room. I wasn't hungry," John stammered, but his voice felt weak, as if something was crushing him from the inside. Ronald stepped closer, his shadow looming over John's table. "You should have known better," the clown whispered, the words like ice in John's veins. "Everyone gets fries at 3 a.m. Everyone has to, or else..." Ronald's smile stretched even wider. "I come for you." Before John could respond, Brad, his roommate, walked in, laughing to himself, oblivious to the scene unfolding before him. He had come to grab a quick bite after a late-night practice, shrugging off John's warnings. "What's going on?" Brad asked, spotting the strange figure in the corner. "Is this some kind of prank?" John couldn't answer. He couldn't speak. His mind was too clouded with fear. Ronald's smile faltered, and he turned his gaze toward Brad. "Ah, a skeptic, I see." The clown chuckled darkly. "You should have listened." Brad laughed, dismissing the threat. "It's just some guy in makeup, right?" he joked. Before John could warn him, Ronald reached out with long, gloved hands and grabbed Brad's arm. There was a sharp, unnatural crack, and in an instant, Brad's body seemed to contort, twisting as though the clown was absorbing him. John watched in horror as his friend was pulled into the shadows, his screams echoing through the empty McDonald's. The lights flickered, and suddenly, everything was quiet again. Brad was gone. John sat frozen in place, his fries still untouched. The clown was gone now, but the atmosphere in the room had shifted. No one else seemed to notice the disappearances or the terror that had just unfolded before them. It was as if nothing had changed. The woman, now pale and exhausted, looked at John. "I told you," she whispered, barely audible. "I told you to get fries." John stood up, his legs weak. He left the restaurant without a word. He never returned to that McDonald's. But sometimes, late at night when he closes his eyes, he hears the faint sizzling of fries and wonders if the clown is still out there, waiting. I lived in a small apartment with my mom, who worked 2 jobs, one during the day and another at night. We didn't have much, but we made do. I had to be careful with my money, saving whenever I could. Cooking at home didn't make sense, especially since McDonald's was just around the corner. I could always grab a Happy Meal for a few bucks whenever I was hungry, and it became part of my routine. When my mom wasn't home, I spent a lot of time alone. The silence in the apartment felt overwhelming at times. To fill the emptiness, I turned to the internet. Chat rooms weren't as big back then, but they offered a way to talk to others who felt just as isolated as I did. It wasn't much, but it helped. That's how I met John. At first, it was just small talk. We bonded over our love for gaming, specifically Counter-Strike. We played together almost every day, and soon our messages went from being about games to something more personal. We started sharing our fears, our dreams, even our childhood memories. It felt like we were building something real. Months passed, and our conversations deepened. It wasn't just about games anymore. I told John about my loneliness, my worries about the future, the stuff I didn't even share with my mom. And John opened up too, sharing his own struggles and his past. It felt like a friendship, maybe even more than that. I thought maybe I had found someone who understood me. One evening, after talking for hours about our childhoods, John suggested something that made my heart skip a beat. "John, hey, we've been talking for a while now. How about we meet up, in person? I think it's time." I froze for a moment. Meeting someone from the internet wasn't something I had ever considered. But with John, it felt different. It felt safe. He seemed genuine, like someone I could trust. Maybe this was the change I needed in my life. Me. Sure. McDonald's is close to me. How about there? John. Perfect. I'll meet you there tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I'm just a few minutes away. I was both excited and nervous. What if it didn't go well? What if I wasn't what he expected? I spent the rest of the day preparing, fixing my hair, choosing what to wear. It felt silly, but I wanted to make a good impression, even though we'd shared so much online already. The next day I left my apartment earlier than I needed to. I didn't want to be late. McDonald's was just around the corner, so I had plenty of time. I ordered a small meal, just something to keep me busy while I waited. I kept glancing at the door, hoping to see John walk in. But as the minutes passed, I began to wonder. What if he wasn't coming? What if this was all a mistake? 6 p.m. came and went. Then 6:15, 6:30. I started to feel that familiar knot in my stomach, the one I always got when I was disappointed. Maybe I had been foolish to trust someone I'd never met in person. Maybe John wasn't coming. Maybe he wasn't who he said he was. And then I saw him. But it wasn't John. It was a man who caught my attention immediately. He was tall, wearing a long coat despite the warm evening. His eyes locked onto mine, and I quickly looked away, feeling a wave of discomfort. The way he was staring at me, it wasn't casual. It felt like he was sizing me up. I tried to brush it off, but the man didn't stop staring. He walked toward me, and my heart began to race. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Stranger. Hey there, little guy. You waiting for someone?" I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Me. Yeah. I'm waiting for a friend. His name's John. We've been talking online for a while." The man's smile widened, but there was something off about it. He leaned in too close, his breath too warm. "Stranger. John? Maybe I'm John's dad. You don't look like you're from around here. What do you say I buy you something to eat while you wait?" A cold shiver ran down my spine. Something wasn't right. This wasn't normal. I started to feel trapped. Why was he talking to me like this? Why was he being so pushy? Me, shaking my head, trying to sound confident. "No, thanks, I'm good. I'll just wait for John." But the man didn't let it go. He pushed a Happy Meal box toward me, his hand too tight on the box, like he was forcing it into my hands. "Stranger. Come on, don't be shy. You're probably hungry. Just eat something." My heart started pounding. My instincts were screaming at me to get out of there, but I stayed frozen, unsure of what to do. "Me." Firmly, my voice shaking, I said no. "Please leave me alone." But the man didn't back off. As I stood up to leave, he grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my skin. "Stranger," grinning. "Where are you going? Don't you want to eat?" At that moment, a McDonald's employee walked over. She had been watching the situation unfold from the counter and could see something was wrong. She approached with concern. "Employee, is everything all right here?" The man quickly let go of my arm, trying to act like nothing was wrong. He shoved the Happy Meal back into his bag, his nervousness obvious. "Stranger," trying to cover up. "We're just talking. No harm done." The employee wasn't fooled. She called for the manager, and within minutes the man was escorted out of the restaurant. I felt a wave of relief, but I couldn't shake the fear that had gripped me. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying the encounter over and over. Why had he approached me like that? What did he want? His smile still made my stomach turn. It was like he had planned this. A few weeks later, I saw a news story about a man who had been arrested for targeting young people online and luring them in with false promises. When the camera zoomed in on his face, my heart dropped. It was him. The man from McDonald's. That was him. My hands shook. What if I had gone with him? What if I had trusted him? It could have ended so differently. That realization hit me hard. I had been naive. I thought I knew John. I thought I knew who he was. But I didn't. I trusted someone I had never met in person, someone who could have been anyone. And that man wasn't trying to be my friend. He was looking for someone to manipulate. That night, I learned something important. Trust isn't something you give away lightly. I had to start trusting myself first. My instincts, my gut feelings. I wasn't alone. I just had to be smarter about who I let into my world. From that day on, I became more cautious, not just with who I trusted, but with how I trusted myself. I learned to listen to that uneasy feeling in my stomach, the one that tells me when something isn't right. I knew now that no one would take advantage of me again, not John, not anyone. I had always heard the rumors about the old building. The way people said it was cursed, haunted by the suicides from years back when it was an office complex. The kind of place you avoid walking by after dark. The kind of place that made my grandmother cross herself every time we passed it as kids. "Never go near it," she'd whisper to me. "The souls are restless there." It's 2024 now, and I was just working at McDonald's, not some horror movie set. But that night, everything changed. It was a Tuesday night, dead slow as usual. The restaurant was quiet except for the low hum of the fryers and the soft flickering of the lights overhead. The familiar sounds of the fast food kitchen were oddly comforting to me. This late shift had become my refuge, my escape from a life that sometimes felt like it was spiraling out of control. I had always told myself I would do better, that I'd be out of here soon, but at 27, stuck in a cycle of part-time jobs, I wasn't sure anymore. Ryan had been working his own late-night shifts, trying to make ends meet like me. On some nights, when we had nothing else to do, we'd meet here, in the back corner of the McDonald's dining area, and eat together. Cheap, comforting food. It was our thing. I glanced at the clock. 11:45 p.m. He was late, as usual. I sent him another text. "Where are you?" And leaned back against the counter, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. The minutes dragged on. Suddenly, I saw a shadow moving toward the door, out of the corner of my eye. I stood up, heart racing. Finally, Ryan. I couldn't help myself. I crouched behind the counter, grinning, ready to jump out and scare him. I loved playing pranks on him. The bell above the door chimed softly as it opened, and I held my breath. But nothing. No footsteps. No sounds of Ryan calling out to me. I waited for what felt like an eternity, counting the seconds in my head. 5, 10, 15. Still nothing. "Ryan?" I whispered, peeking over the counter. The dining area was empty. The door had closed behind me, but no one had entered. My heart skipped a beat. I stood up, my pulse quickening with unease. It had to be a joke. Ryan was messing with me, right? I walked around the counter and checked the tables, just in case he had slipped in unnoticed. I even checked the bathrooms. "Ryan, seriously, this isn't funny." I called out, but there was no answer. Only the dull hum of the machines and the oppressive silence. Then, suddenly, I heard a loud crash outside. My heart jumped in my chest. My first thought was that Ryan had been hurt. I rushed out of the door, fear squeezing my chest. What if he had fallen or hit something? But the parking lot was empty. Nothing. No cars. No other people. Only a trash can tipped over on its side, the metal bent, as if something heavy had fallen on it from above. I stood frozen, staring at it. No wind. No reason for the can to be knocked over. It didn't make sense. I hadn't heard footsteps. There was no one around. Just as I was about to head back inside, I heard it. "Stacy." I spun around. There, running toward me from the other side of the parking lot, was Ryan, his face pale as a ghost. He grabbed my arms, his hands trembling. His eyes were wide with fear. "Did you see that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "See what?" I was confused, still trying to make sense of everything. "I saw someone jump, Stacy, from the roof. Right here." He pointed toward the top of the building, his voice shaking. I followed his gaze to the roof. There was nothing there. No movement. Just the dark, still outline of the building against the night sky. "There's no one up there, Ryan. You're freaking me out," I said, trying to sound calm. "I'm serious," he insisted, grabbing my arm tighter. "Someone jumped, I saw it. They should have fallen right here." The look in his eyes told me he wasn't joking. I glanced back at the trash can, the dent in the metal. I remembered the loud sound I had heard earlier, the one that had made my heart race, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Something was wrong. "I don't know, Ryan," I said, my voice a little shaky. "Let's just go inside." I pushed open the door, still feeling the weight of the moment pressing on my chest. As I did, something moved in the reflection of the window behind us. A figure. Just a flash. But I could swear I saw something standing there watching us. We spun around, but the parking lot was empty. Nothing. Just the cold silence. I quickly locked the door behind us, my hands still trembling. I tried to push the unsettling feeling aside, but it lingered in the pit of my stomach. Ryan glanced toward the kitchen. "Is Ramon still here?" he asked, his voice tight. "No, he left an hour ago," I answered, my eyes following his gaze. Then who else is doing the graveyard shift? He looked at me, confusion and fear mixed in his expression. No one, I said. It's just me. Why? Ryan looked like he had seen a ghost. I swear, I saw someone walk into the kitchen. My stomach sank. The door to the kitchen was swinging ever so slightly as if someone had just passed through. I hesitated, but the air in the room felt thick, unnatural, almost oppressive. I took a step forward and Ryan followed me, his footsteps heavy. The lights flickered. I reached for the fryer, but before I could turn it off, the oil started bubbling violently, as if someone had turned it on by itself. I stepped back, my heart pounding. "Stacy, we need to get out of here," Ryan said, his voice tight with fear. I nodded, but I couldn't take my eyes off the fryer. The heat from it was intense, and the oil began to smoke, curling upward in dark tendrils. Then a loud bang echoed through the kitchen, and metal spatulas and pans fell to the floor with a deafening clatter. Ryan backed away. "Let's go. Now." I tried to shut the fryer off, but the buttons wouldn't work. As I pulled away, the lights flickered again, and in one of those flashes I saw something, or someone, standing in the doorway to the kitchen. As the lights flickered again, I froze. In that brief moment of darkness, I saw it. Someone, or something, standing in the doorway of the kitchen. The figure was tall, its shape shadowed, and for a split second I could have sworn I saw glowing white eyes. But just as quickly as the lights had gone out, they flashed back on. The figure was gone. Ryan grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "We need to leave, now." I didn't argue. I ran toward the door, my heart hammering in my chest. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped the keys twice before I could finally unlock the door. Ryan pulled me outside, and we sprinted to his car. As we drove away, I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something following us. And then, as I looked back one last time, my breath caught in my throat. In the dark window of McDonald's, I saw a figure standing there watching us. Its eyes, those white, glowing eyes, stared right through me, as though it knew everything I had seen, everything I had felt. I turned to Ryan, but he was already looking straight ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't answer. He just kept driving, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear. We didn't speak for the rest of the ride, both of us trying to process what had just happened. When we finally got to his apartment, we sat in the car for a few minutes, neither of us moving. The silence between us was heavy. I could feel the weight of the night settling over me like a suffocating blanket. "Stacy ... Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What the hell was that? What happened back there?" I didn't have an answer. I couldn't explain the things we'd seen, the things we'd heard. There was no rational explanation for it. Maybe the building was haunted, or maybe we had just been caught in some kind of nightmare. But whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't over. The next day, I didn't go to work. I couldn't bring myself to. I called in sick, telling them I wasn't feeling well. The truth was, I was still shaken by everything that had happened. I couldn't stop thinking about the figure in the kitchen, the eyes, and the way the air had felt thick and heavy, like we weren't alone. Ryan tried to convince me to go back with him and check the restaurant. He was certain that we hadn't imagined it, but I refused. There was no way I was going back to that place, not after what we'd seen, not after what we had felt. I didn't hear from him for a few days. I figured he was just as disturbed as I was. But then, on the fourth day, I got a call from him. His voice was frantic. "Stacy, you need to come back. Now." "Ryan, what are you talking about?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. "It's still happening," he said. "I went back there to check on something, and I swear, it's not just the building, it's me too. I think it's following me. Stacy, it's not just the building. I feel it. I see things. It's all I can think about." I felt a chill run down my spine. I didn't need to ask what he meant. I already knew. The thing whatever it was, hadn't left us. It was still out there, watching, waiting. I didn't want to believe it, but the truth was undeniable. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and I both experienced strange occurrences. At night, I'd hear faint whispers when I was alone, soft, unintelligible voices that sent shivers down my spine. Ryan, too, had dreams. Nightmares, he called them, where he was trapped in the restaurant, unable to leave, surrounded by shadowy figures and glowing white eyes. The building had left its mark on us, its darkness seeping into our lives in ways we couldn't escape. And with each passing day, the feeling grew stronger. The sense that we weren't alone, that something was waiting for us to come back. But we didn't return. We couldn't. Every time I thought about it, my heart would race, and my breath would catch in my throat. The image of those glowing eyes in the window haunted me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the building was still out there, waiting for us to come back and finish what we had started. A few months later, I heard that the McDonald's had closed down. The company claimed it was due to poor business, but rumors circulated that the building was too dangerous, too haunted to continue operating. Employees who had worked there during the night shifts spoke of strange occurrences, things moving on their own, lights flickering, voices calling out in the empty halls. They said the restaurant had been built over the old office complex, and that the suicides from years ago had left a curse on the place. I never found out if it was true or not. I didn't want to know. But part of me felt relieved that the place was finally abandoned. Maybe it would stop haunting us. Maybe the darkness would finally leave us alone. But then, one night as I walked home from work, I passed by the old building. The lights were off, the doors locked tight, but I swore I saw something in the window. A figure standing there, watching me. Its eyes were glowing white, and just like that, I knew it wasn't over. The clatter of the kitchen fills the air. Michelle, a tired mother in her late 20s, hustles behind the counter, moving from register to kitchen. Her worn apron is soaked with sweat, and her eyes are heavy with exhaustion. The faint hum of the fryers blends with the sounds of the fast food restaurant, but her mind is elsewhere. Her daughter, Isabella, plays in the corner booth, enjoying herself with a few other kids. She looks over at her occasionally, her heart heavy with worry. Michelle, to herself, sighing, "Just one more hour, then we'll get home." Her phone vibrates on the counter, an alert for an overdue bill. She glances at it, feeling the pressure of overdue payments weighing on her shoulders. She turns her attention back to the busy restaurant, trying to stay focused. Isabella, bubbly and full of life, is laughing, her voice ringing out as she plays with a small toy. She's sitting on the lap of Kevin, dressed in the familiar Ronald McDonald costume. The children gather around, and his broad smile seems to light up the room. But there's something unsettling about him. The crooked teeth, the pale blue eyes that never blink enough, the way his smile doesn't reach them. Kevin, laughing with the kids. "Come on, who can make the funniest face? Let's see." Isabella's eyes light up as she watches Kevin's exaggerated faces. She giggles and rushes over to him, eagerly sitting on his lap. "Isabella, I want to be a clown like you when I grow up, Kevin." Kevin, laughing softly, his smile too wide. "You'd make a great one, Bella." From behind the counter, Michelle watches them. Her stomach tightens at the sight of Kevin's lingering gaze, but she shakes it off, convincing herself she's overreacting. The kids love him. He's harmless. Still, she can't help but feel a coldness creeping in her chest. The dinner rush hits hard. The restaurant is crowded. Michelle is moving faster now, trying to keep up with the orders. She's working on autopilot, barely keeping track of time. But she can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. She glances toward the play area again. Kevin is still there, surrounded by children. His pale blue eyes scan the room, but they stop when they land on Michelle. For a moment, his gaze lingers. Something about it unsettles her. Isabella is still there, laughing and playing. Kevin is telling a joke, and the children erupt into giggles. "Coworker," quietly, approaching Michelle. You know, Kevin, he's a little too into the kids sometimes. Michelle, trying to remain calm. What do you mean? Co-worker, hesitant, looking around. Just people talk. You know, he's a little weird. Just keep an eye out, okay? Michelle's throat tightens. She nods, not wanting to acknowledge the growing sense of unease she's feeling. She turns back toward the play area, her eyes narrowing on Kevin, who is still smiling that too wide grin. Michelle, to herself, softly. I'm just being paranoid. He's just a clown. The noise of the restaurant fades as Michelle races around, taking orders, making sure everything runs smoothly. When she turns back to check on Isabella, her heart stops. Isabella is no longer in the play area. Panic rises instantly, and she scans the restaurant, her eyes searching frantically for her daughter. Michelle, whispering to herself, frantic. Bella? Bella. She begins moving through the crowded restaurant, pushing through customers and staff alike, asking if anyone's seen Isabella. Her heart beats faster, louder, as the minutes pass. She can't find her. The panic deepens. Michelle, yelling now, Bella! Her breath is heavy, her legs aching from running through the restaurant. She bursts out of the back door into the alley, the cool air hitting her like a slap. The streetlights flicker above, casting eerie shadows. She calls out again, her voice cracking with worry. Michelle, Bella, where are you, baby? Silence. The alley stretches out in front of her, dark and quiet. She looks toward the back of the building. That's when she hears it, the faint sound of a soft sob, followed by a low voice, almost too gentle. Kevin, from behind the dumpster. It's okay, Bella. You're safe now. We don't have to tell Mommy. She'll just worry. Michelle freezes. The words cut through the silence, each one sending a chill down her spine. Her heart hammers in her chest. She walks toward the dumpster cautiously, her feet moving like they're in slow motion. The shadows seem to stretch out before her, warping in her fear-filled mind. She rounds the corner, and there they are. Isabella is sitting on Kevin's lap, her face streaked with tears. Her dress is covered in dark red stains. Kevin is holding her, his hands slick with blood, his wide, unsettling smile still plastered on his face. Michelle, yelling, her voice cracking with fear and anger. No! What the hell is going on? Kevin doesn't flinch. His pale blue eyes meet Michelle's, wide but unnervingly calm. Isabella is still crying softly in his arms, her tiny hands clutching his sleeve. Isabella, through her sobs. Mommy, I'm scared. Kevin, quietly trying to calm Michelle. Michelle, wait. Just listen. Michelle, voice breaking, her hands shaking as she points at Isabella. You sick monster! What did you do to my daughter? Michelle's hands tremble with rage. She grabs a nearby rock, her fingers digging into its rough edges as she hurls it at Kevin. It hits him squarely in the shoulder, but he barely reacts. He looks at her, still with that unnerving calm. The rock's impact does nothing to break his stillness. Michelle, shouting, her voice filled with fury and desperation. How could you? How could you do this to her? Kevin, calmly, trying to reason with her almost too calmly. Michelle, calm down. It's not what you think. Just let me explain. Michelle's co-workers have followed her outside, drawn by the noise and her screams. They freeze in place, unsure of what to do. The confusion is palpable as they stand frozen looking at the scene unfolding before them. Co-worker, whispering, horrified. Is that blood? Michelle, almost pleading, her voice breaking. Please, help me. He's done something to her. Kevin raises his hands, his voice finally dropping a bit, a tinge of sadness in it. Kevin, sighing deeply, speaking to Isabella. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. Michelle steps forward, her eyes still wild with panic. Kevin points to the ground, his face now carrying a hint of regret. Kevin, softly. Look, it's not what you think. Michelle hesitates for a moment before stepping closer. Her gaze shifts to the ground behind him, and there, lying in a pool of blood, is a small furry shape. Michelle, voice trembling. What is that? Kevin, sighing, looking down at the raccoon with a pained expression. It's a raccoon. It attacked Bella. I fought it off, but it scratched her. That's what the blood is. Michelle stands frozen, her mind struggling to process the words. She looks down at Isabella, who is still clutching Kevin's blood-stained sleeve, tears streaming down her face. Kevin's eyes meet Michelle's, and for the first time she sees something different in them, genuine concern. Kevin, softly, to Isabella, "You're okay, sweetheart. You're safe." Michelle's breath catches in her throat. The weight of the situation crashes over her, and for a moment she doesn't know what to do. She steps back, her mind reeling. She looks at Isabella, still clinging to Kevin. The blood, the fear, it all starts to make sense. Michelle, softly, broken. "Bella, are you okay?" Isabella, sniffling, looking up at her mom. "I'm okay, Mommy. Kevin saved me." Michelle's heart aches as she looks at her daughter, realizing just how wrong Michelle's heart aches as she looks at her daughter, realizing just how wrong she had been. She feels the weight of her fear and judgment, and a deep wave of guilt crashes over her. She steps forward, pulling Isabella gently into her arms, her mind still reeling with the events that had just unfolded. Michelle, whispering, her voice breaking, "I'm so sorry, Bella. I'm so sorry for not listening, for not trusting you." Isabella hugs her tightly, still sniffling, but comforted by her mother's embrace. Michelle turns her gaze back to Kevin, who is now standing a little further back, watching them quietly. His smile is soft, almost sad. Kevin, quietly with a sigh, "It's okay, Michelle. I understand. People see things differently sometimes, but I'd never hurt her." Michelle just nods, her eyes filled with regret. Her mind begins to settle, the adrenaline fading as she processes everything. The blood, the fear, the confusion, it was all so much to take in. But now, in the cold silence of the alley, it's clear what happened. Kevin wasn't the monster she feared. The real danger had been the raccoon, a wild animal, and he had been the one to protect her daughter. The weight of judgment, of prejudice, starts to lift from her chest. She had let fear cloud her judgment, misreading the situation. She looks at Kevin one last time, her expression a mixture of gratitude and guilt. Michelle, softly, "Thank you for saving her." Kevin, with a kind smile, nodding, "No need to thank me. I'd do it for anyone." As Michelle stands there holding Isabella close, the cold night air settles around them. The rest of the employees start to relax, the tension slowly dissipating. They begin to walk back toward the door, unsure of what to say, but relieved that the danger has passed. Michelle takes one last look at Kevin, who's already turning to leave, walking back into the dim light of the alley with a quiet nod. She holds Isabella tightly, vowing never to let fear cloud her judgment again. Sometimes the people who look the scariest are the ones who save you from harm, and the true monsters are often the shadows of our own fears.